And we are live. Welcome to this special edition Mecca moment. I am your host and only one on the pod, Andy Hoover, Young Yid on Twitter, local Tottenham fan, only Tottenham fan on the pod. Felt that I needed to hop in the booth for some news that happened over the pond today in North London. Daniel Levy, the chairman of Tottenham Hotspur, has stepped down, and I had some thoughts. I'm not going to lie. I had a lot of thoughts. Enough to put together my own little vent sesh almost. Just get some thoughts off the chest and some excitement and some takes. Who knows? I have no notes. I'm completely, absolutely just riffing this. Nothing in front of me currently at the desk, but things that I felt that I needed to explain, talk about, go through, work through. This is maybe more for me than anybody else, but that's why we're in the business of podcasting, because our thoughts somebody else might like or hate and have takes on, but that's why we do it. Daniel Levy signed on in 2000. He is a part of the ENIC ownership group that's currently in control, along with the Lewis family, formerly Joe Lewis, that I think has passed down to his granddaughter, I believe, and she's kind of spearheading that side of operations. So a few housekeeping items. I am not from London. I have never been to a Tottenham game. I have no personal stake in the club outside of following them every single week and living and dying by 3 points and our position on the table. So this is all coming from an American. I have a sports business major background that I didn't do anything with in my career. That was a long time ago. But I do feel that I have a little bit of thought and insight to that aspect of what has kind of gone down over the last 25 years of the Daniel Levy era. When Daniel Levy came in, Tottenham were mid-table at best, upper mid-table, historical club. I don't think there's any argument against the stature and size of Tottenham, albeit it crashed and burned over the last 40. Picked up in 2000. He came on as a part of this group, took over the chairman position, and I think it's weird to say that he did a lot of really good things, because obviously, you know, 2 trophies in 25 years, 16 managers, not a ton of super positive footballing attributes that he gave Spurs fans, but he did do some positive things. And I think that that's kind of why I wanted to work through this. Again, maybe more for me than anybody else. But when he picked up, mid-table was really kind of where they were finishing. I mean, 2012, 9th, 10th, 14th, 9th, 5th, 5th, 11th, 8th, 4th. The last trophy was the League Cup in 2007, before the Europa League this year, obviously. But really not great seasons. And they had an iconic stadium. The stadium itself, I think, was a little bit shambolic's the wrong word, but it wasn't up to par with where I think Tottenham and Tottenham fans felt that they should be on a global scale, comparative to your Liverpools, your Uniteds, your Chelseas, your Madrids, Barcelonas. They always viewed themselves as this major, big-time global club, and their history defends that. They do have European silverware previously, a really, really long time ago. Don't get me wrong; these were great. But they stalled. They stalled as a club, and that was really the only positive thing that we can sit here and point at Mr. Bald Levy and his success was everything off the football pitch. And I signed on to my Spurs fandom in 2011. My favorite soccer player of all time, Clint Dempsey, balling out at Fulham, scores against Juventus in the Europa League, makes a big move to Tottenham, N17, White Hart Lane, starts playing with this kid, Gareth Bale. I've been through this story. I know I have. This kid, Gareth Bale, ends up becoming one of the greats. I don't think that's hard to argue either. But in that era, he did a lot of good things, and it was all from a sports business perspective. So now you look at Aston Villa currently dealing with the financial fair play issues that they've got. West Ham, a lot of these teams are having issues with being sustainable, and sustainability is the key word that I think a lot of teams don't have or are trying to have, especially pre-oil money investment. That was new. That was a new concept back in the mid 2000s that he wanted to put to the forefront and bring up to speed for Tottenham. And truth be told, he did that. A part of my fandom and where I really grasped onto this team and club, aside from the players, aside from White Hart Lane, aside from everything that came on the field, they historically have always driven youth up through the program. They have always supported their youth teams. They've always had players come up as one of their own and, be contributing factors. A lot like my local baseball team, who I love and would die for as well, St. Louis Cardinals. Now, young, naive Andy didn't realize that may have been a bad thing at the time, the way that adult 29-year-old Andy looks at it now, because we're seeing a lot of issues with the St. Louis Cardinals. But one thing that's undeniable at both clubs is the investment into the community, the facilities, the surrounding area, the real estate, the stadium. Those things are all true. Daniel Levy wanted to have the state-of-the-art, world-class facilities. He wanted to have one of the best stadiums in the country, in the world at the time. He wanted those things, with the supposed direction being it's easier to attract world-class players. And objectively, I think he was correct. The issue was that some of those things just never really came to fruition. World-class managers came in, world-class players. We had Harry Kane, just unbelievable talent, managerial talent come and go. And for what? Why? Where, we've got these facilities, right? We've got this stadium. We've got all these things that the best players in the world would want to have at a club in the best league in the world. None of that happened. And it's pulling them out of, the mid-table drab, I think, was an achievement and something to be celebrated. But then at a certain point, you've got to reciprocate that. Fans don't care about facilities. Fans aren't practicing at One Hotspur Way. Fans don't care if they're playing in a Sunday league stadium versus a $1 billion, mega dome. They do not care. Fans care about what happens on the field, what happens with players, trophies, accolades, championships, titles. That's all fans want. Yes, it's great that he was able to do all these strategic partnerships. And, you look up the list of partnerships that Tottenham currently has as a club, and there's a flipping there's an F1 track, like a go-kart track under the stadium, and list the amount. There's Beyonce and Kendrick Lamar and SZA and all of these world-class acts, Rolling Stone. Everyone's played at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. All good things, objectively. Everything that I just mentioned is positive, but it was never reflecting what was happening to the team and on the pitch. And that's where I think everything fell apart. Within the last couple of years, we got all these things. Amazing. Jose Mourinho comes in 2020, and we have the COVID year, but he's got these amazing facilities and a stadium that can't have fans in it because of COVID. All of these super cool things that felt like we were heading in the right direction. And then nothing happened. Historically, some of the lowest wages in the league, talent that we thought we would attract with these facilities never came. And you can't keep managers. He fires Jose Mourinho the week before a cup final. Mauricio Pochettino gets to the Champions League final with a very talented team, but arguably overperforming, which I think is another parallel to the St. Louis Cardinals. 2006, we were a wild card team, won the World Series. 2011, went on a magical run, won the World Series. Both of those teams were good. Neither of those teams were star-studded, unbelievably stocked shoo-ins for a championship. That not supporting those aspects. You make the right moves and then you stop making the moves, and fans lost it. And myself included. You can go back on a ton of these podcast episodes, and I'm Mr. Levy. I will talk about that daft, bald-headed clown plenty. You'll hear it. I was not a fan. And I think that I am doing this recording to kind of organize my own thoughts in the sense of what he did was positive, but nobody cares about some of those things. And then you've got all this stuff and it's not getting better. It's almost getting worse. So to miss out on all those years with Pochettino, who got sacked immediately, within the next couple of weeks, months, the next year after he gets to the Champions League final with the team that really shouldn't have ever gotten to the Champions League final. They take down Man City. They take down a really strong young Ajax team. They beat Dortmund at home. There's so many amazing things from that run that everyone just wanted to do again, and it never happened. That was in my opinion, really the final straw for the fans. And that's why we're so excited that he's out. That's a huge day. It is a huge day for Spurs fans. Everything that I've read online is just elation from fans. Most of the people online and a lot of young fans haven't known, including myself, have not known a Tottenham without him. But you look at these Man Cities, you look at Newcastle, you look at, Liverpool's doing it in their own way without the oil money, but these oil money, these structures coming in to where that's who you want to compete with. That's who you have to compete with. If you build yourself up as this club, this globally recognized brand that you say you are, whether or not you agree with that is totally okay, because a lot of people don't know. Tourists will go to London because Beyonce is playing in the stadium. It's not always about the football team. They're not the biggest club in the country. That's just straight up the truth. They don't have the titles Man United have. They don't have the amazing, years that Liverpool had. Sent the fans into a complete spiral, which wholeheartedly agreed with. We're not paying players. We have a historically low wage bill. We're not attracting talent. A lot of his philosophy, which reflects in the business dealings and the positive things that came out of his tenure, were nickel and diming everybody for everything all the time. Phone call after phone call after phone call to nickel and dime a transfer over a couple $1 million. Things that the fans don't care about. It is not our money. It is not my money. I am not concerned about the $5 million extra that you have to pay for whoever. Paulo Dybala was a big one. He was strongly linked with Spurs years back, and it would have been the blockbuster signing that so many fans have just been crying out for. And it came down to image rights. Daniel Levy was not willing to give him the image rights that he wanted to use his professional image. And that's just a drop in the bucket of the things that he had done financially to shoot them in the foot over and over and over again. And in doing that, ruined relationships with other clubs and their ability to negotiate with the guy, negotiate with the club, bring in talent, let talent go. It was just always so tedious, and nobody cared about that, except he did. And that's the sustainability way, which great, awesome. That's so great. Appreciate you. So now that that's done, I think everyone can look and see the bright side of things. Now we have this amazing stadium. We have these world-class facilities, top 3 in England. All we ever needed was the final piece to pay players, bring talent in, back managers. There's a whole laundry list of managers that just weren't given what they wanted, and then were subsequently fired by him because they were underachieving. But they may have not actually been underachieving. They were probably just achieving at the ability that they were given. All of the managers asked for a laundry list of players. Conte comes to mind specifically. Antonio Conte could have put together an unbelievable Tottenham team, and he just wasn't allowed to because of these nickel and diming transactions. And it kind of is just saying, like, look, man, you just got to work with what you got. That drove everyone insane. So today, September 4th, 2025, day one begins without Daniel Levy. He stepped down. Sounds like he was pushed out by the Joe Louis family, the other major owner of ENIC, the ownership group. And they more or less said that we want to seek, accolades on the pitch. They heard the fans. They respected how they felt about the current state of the club, and they backed it up. They have dropped him. Now you don't know what happens. We're very much so in an unknown era of Tottenham Hotspur. It's been 25 years that you don't know where to turn at this point. You don't know how to feel, other than the fact that one of the main reasons that everybody felt that Spurs weren't living up to this ideology that they were big. You want to be a big club. And it never felt like he did. It never felt like he cared much about the sporting aspect, which, shocker, it's a football club. You need to care about it. The Glazers of United don't really care about it, but they've still had more success in the last 20 years. There's no denying it. We just absolutely stalled and stalled and stalled. So there's a lot of excitement. The lads are buzzing. I'm buzzing. I think this is fantastic. And I think it's all, you can say Daniel Levy did some good things, but you can also be unbelievably excited for him to just be gone and turn a new page, start fresh, start somewhere new, bring in someone else who wants to see success, pay the players. There's so many players out there that I think would come play for Tottenham if, one, we didn't have the history that we have, which in the last 25 years was built by Daniel Levy. It's Tottenham lads. There's a phrase. Giorgio Chiellini said it, like, oh, that's the story of Tottenham. Like, these things are way on the fans. They don't weigh on Daniel Levy. They don't weigh on anyone who's profiting directly from the club and the business that they do. The fans have to carry this embarrassment every single year of just being the redheaded stepchild of the Premier League and, boosting ourselves as this huge global club, when really, are we? I don't know. But we should be. They have the infrastructure. They have the history. They've got so many great things that you can build around now that it's exciting. I think everyone's looking forward to it. We don't know what it is. It could be that there's new ownership coming in. It could be oil money. It could be something like that. And that's, something for a completely different day. Today is a day to celebrate. Spurs win the Europa League trophy, first major trophy in 17 years. They have arguably one of their best windows ever, transfer windows, and bring in a ton of good players. And on that topic, what was he doing with the money in previous transfer windows? Gareth Bale, the British club record sale, 100 and something million pounds, brings in 7 players, one of whom was a recognizable house name that made it anywhere, that even stayed with the club for much longer. And then there was, the Ndombele splash here and there, and those types of those moves that didn't pan out, maybe because they needed more players around them. So here's to a new day, a new chapter, something that I know Tottenham fans everywhere are excited about and can breathe just a little bit easier. And it's in the unknown, and you don't know how this is going to go, and it could get worse before it gets better. That's just the nature of sports. But my bet is that it gets better. It just couldn't have gotten worse. The club, Daniel Levy grew the club. Undeniable. He absolutely did. The club grew faster than Daniel Levy could figure out how to make footballing decisions. And at the end of the day, only thing that matters is the trophy that you lift at the end of the season. That's it. Nobody cares about anything else. That's all that anyone wants to win. So this one is for other Spurs fans celebrating themselves this evening. And, a new day. Again, riffing completely all of this. I don't even know how I was going to wrap it up. I'm just blabbering at this point. Xavi Simons is in. Biggest club signing in maybe my lifetime. Maybe. There's excitement. You got Thomas Frank at the helm. He's running a pretty decent ship thus far. Cheers. Hopefully you pulled something out of this. And if you didn't, I don't care. This was for me. Follow us on the socials. Hoove, signing off.